correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience.
Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm here with my friend Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Steve. And we're going to talk some RPGs, but before we do that, we're going to talk about the Story Told podcast.
Yes, the Story Told podcast is another podcast here on the D20 Radio Network, hosted by Logan Griffin, and I believe the third host's name is Kim. It's another, I guess you'd call it a variety podcast. They do a lot of, discussions, talk about particularly independent games and so on. A lot of narrative-focused stuff. I know they've also been doing, not sure if it's still going on, they had a Promethean actual play that they were mixing in with their regular episodes. You know, we had Logan and Griffin on a while back to talk about Changeling. They're really cool people. It's a really good show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Send some love their way.
Yep.
Well, so we'd sort of talked about topics, and I said I kind of had a topic for tonight because I am, as of time of recording, 2 sessions away from ending my little over a year-long campaign of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it might be a relevant time with my current state of mind to talk about ending campaigns and where to leave things off and how to leave things off. And this is also partially sparked by Hooley, GM Hooley of all people,
Mm-hmm.
who had messaged us about the culmination of intrigue and action being the ending. And so here we are. This is this final part of the intrigue and action part.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Go ahead.
I just think like you end it when it's the time to end it, and I don't think you can put your finger on what it is. It's different every time.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a couple telltale markers. I think one of the big things is understanding when time is up and when the best time to end something is.
That's true too.
So if you have a narrative in mind and your players are relatively sticking to that narrative, you should have an ending in mind for it. And that ending could be as simple as they all retire and do their own thing, or it could be as crazy as the world ends and that's the ending of the campaign. And having an ending in mind and having a goal set is actually really helpful when running a campaign because it gives you something, especially in longer form campaigns. Like this one's run for over a year. We started in basically March of 2023. And here we are in July or June of 24. So a year and a couple months. And when I started in March, I had the goal of running a campaign for a year. That was the set goal for myself. I was like, I'm going to do this campaign for a year. I want to do something long form. Haven't done something long form in a long time. Because the truth of the matter is we had been playing short form campaigns, and that's great. Little short, you play it for 2 months, 3 months, and then you're done. It's fine. But I always knew that I wanted to wrap this one up in a year. I extended it a little bit past a year because we had, general life stuff. People missed sessions. We missed a lot. I missed a lot of time. We took gaps in between here and there. Like last summer, we took some time off, and I took time off for cons and stuff like that. And I lost my train of thought.
I mean, right. Well, in this case, like you said, you had a goal. You met that goal.
Oh, that's what I was driving at. So I think setting a goal for a campaign is super, super helpful as a GM to do. If you were setting, whether it be a storyline goal or a timeline goal, like an actual time goal like myself, it's really helpful to do that because it gets you it helps with your pacing, because now you're like, okay, we have to hit this point by this time, and we need to get there, and so I have to pace this out appropriately. And doing so is some of the challenge with all that. But
Well, right. I mean, but I think you mentioned a couple things there, right? Like, is it you have a goal, and I think
mhm,
that's important too, especially for like you and I, who are both pretty improv heavy GMs. Where
yeah,
we may not have nearly the structure that, like, let's just say you're running a pre-written module, and well, you're over when you're through the book.
right, exactly. And those have a time frame and a storyline in mind. And for somebody like me and you, or at least I know I'll speak for myself, maybe I won't speak for you, but I know for myself, I don't necessarily have a like, I know the story that I want to tell, and I know the outline of that story. I don't have all the details, but I do usually know the ending. I usually know the final fight that leads up, and what I want my players to do at that point. And then from there, as far as the actual ending, it all depends on how that final fight plays out.
Yeah, no, and I think that's it's definitely a valid approach. For me, I probably generally have, what do you want to say, a loose end goal in mind, but I'm very happy to chase rabbit trails of my own or of the players along the
Oh yeah.
way.
Yeah, I
And sometimes that'll affect my end goal.
exactly. Yeah, no, I definitely had a different ending in mind for this campaign. But as we kept going and as my players kept expressing what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it, it became more and more clear what the ending of this campaign was going to be.
Mhm.
And, you know, I was realizing that as these players are telling me what they want, I'm realizing what they want, and I have to, not that I have to, but in some way I should give them what they're asking for.
Mhm.
And so changing my ending is beneficial to the whole table because it's something that everybody's going to enjoy. I get to play something a little bit different than what I was planning on, and they get to have an awesome experience. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the end goal. And then, also storyline wise, I'm setting it up in a way that when it ends, things will be possible. Basically, I've been telling my players that when we reach the end, they will be able to make either new characters or if they want to roll these ones over. But we're changing systems. We're going from fifth edition to Pathfinder. I'm going to Pathfinder first edition, unfortunately, because I have a couple reasons. All of the material is there. Not saying that there's not material for second edition, but there's so much material for first edition.
Hey, I mean, there's nothing wrong with those games. We don't talk about it a ton, partially because, I mean, I had a decent amount of experience with 3.5. I've never actually played, actual Pathfinder.
Yeah, I had my one player asked me today, he's like, when was the last time you opened these books? And I was like, honestly, 10 years ago at this point, maybe 15. I was probably 15 the last time I played Pathfinder, and it would have been first edition Pathfinder. Like,
Yeah, look, it's a system that gets a lot of love. It's
it's, it, I mean, it's 3.75. You can't argue with it. I don't know how else to put it. Um,
yeah.
but the thing it's giving me, and the reason for the change is I found modern fifth edition to be very limited in scope as far as different creatures to throw at the characters, or all the classes. Like, character options are great, but the GM options were terrible.
Mhm.
Like, there's a handful of books that are GM supplements. So, like Xanathar's Guide, and there's the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Those are good, useful tools. But as far as like, they never published a proper second bestiary or like another monster manual. There is
Yeah.
only the one monster manual.
I mean, you have, what is
Yeah,
the Demons and Devils book? I can't think of what the
yeah,
name
the
of it
Fiends
is.
and Foes or whatever it's called. Um and that's fine, but it's also not a ton of it's not it's not a substitute for another monster manual. You know what I'm saying? Like it has some there, but it's not enough to be just like a whole nother monster manual.
Well, it's a specialized thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
demons and devils. That's what it is. No, I get where you're coming from. I think some of that is probably just a publishing focus where they've been putting that out somewhat piecemeal on a lot of these, your various, call it, campaign books.
well, yeah, they do keep adding new creatures in campaign books. And yeah, I can always reskin creatures and use their stat blocks and call them something different and give them different, but it's not the same as actually having a bajillion different creatures to pick from.
No, and again,
It's
as an improv GM,
being able to grab something out of a book is a big difference. And being able to do that on the fly really helps.
yeah,
And also being able to throw my players curveballs, because like I don't mean this to be in a rude way, but nothing my players fought in during the entire route of this campaign was anything that they had never seen before.
hmm,
Like they had never, everything that they saw was like, oh well, I saw that in the monster manual, or oh, I fought one of those in so and so's campaign, or it was all stuff that, and it's not any fault of mine. You can't know that going into things of like, oh, your players are going to know every monster you throw at them, but it is a
right,
fault, and I put that fault in the game that your monster manual is so limited that the players they're aware of it. They know it. It's second knowledge.
yeah, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. Like in this case, you're changing because you need something different, and that's a valid reason.
Not only that, yeah, I'm also over Watsy's ridiculousness. So, but that's a different, you know. But yeah, back to the topic at hand, though. I think it's exciting to start a new campaign, and I'm very excited to get on it. I'm basically taking some time off in gaming from 2 weeks from now, the end of June, until the middle of August, where I'll pick up with the new campaign. And in that
Mhm.
meantime, I'm going to be rereading and brushing back up on Pathfinder stuff and rules and helping characters get created, and all of that stuff is going to be happening in the meantime. So it's not like I'm completely walking away from the hobby. I'm just taking a little bit more of a backseat approach than what a little bit more hands off than how I've been recently.
Mhm.
But I think another thing that factors in, and this definitely factored in my opinion, on when this should end, because in theory, I could have kept going. In theory, I could have run this, this same campaign could have run indefinitely. I really honestly think these players would have just kept playing, fighting forever. And that's great, but there's also, you also have to take into account environmental factors that make you make this decision. So for example, we have been playing at a GameStop, or at a game shop, not a GameStop, at a game shop consistently for over a year. That comes with various hurdles that need to be sort of overcome, because if I can't make it a Friday, but I could make it a Wednesday, I can't very well get a hold of the owner and be like, open the shop for us Wednesday.
Right.
I mean, I can, and he would do it, but it's not fair. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No,
Like,
I get what you're saying.
it's not fair to anybody else that is just general public, because they can't do that. Joe Bob, who walks into the shop and wants to run a game, isn't going to be able to say to the owner and be like, oh, I want to run it, but then if anybody misses, we could make pickup days. It's Nobody's going to go for that.
Right.
Along with, there's a lot of interruption and noise and distraction that happens when playing in public. And I forgot, not completely, but it's been so long since I played in public that I forgot how challenging that can be for someone with my condition. And I'm not saying that my ADHD is like, I'm not using it as a crutch. I'm just saying it makes it more challenging for me because I have the attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I have the shiny. right? So anytime somebody walks into the store, or there's a kid that cries in the hallway, I'm distracted.
All right.
And so I found that I've made the executive decision that I'm probably, aside from con games, which are a different beast entirely, I'm pretty much done with gaming in public. If I'm going to game, I'm going to game either online with people, or I'm going to game at somebody's house, but I'm not going to be gaming in public anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just made that executive decision because it's too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, environmental decisions come into that as well. And I think it's important to weigh all the factors on when to end a game. And having a conversation with yourself and your players is really important. We had a conversation early on, and I had expressed, I was like, look, I want to run this game for a year. Everybody sort of agreed that that was a fair amount of time. Again, due to various delays, time off, just stuff like that, we ended up running it for over a year. And I basically came to them and was like, I'm going to run for a little bit longer, but it's not going to be much longer. The only reason I'm running for a little bit longer is because I feel bad that you guys got the short stick. And everybody was cool with that. So here we are. What I feel kind of bad for, that's out of my control, the shop owner has added players to my game. This is another reason why I'm transitioning away from that shop, because the shop owner is he's a good guy, and I'm not saying anything bad about him, but he likes to just tell people to come and play. And when you're trying to run a controlled table, that can be frustrating.
It's another hurdle. I mean,
Yeah,
it
and
really is.
it's frustrating on my end because I show up one week and there's just a new guy going, I have a level 1 character. Well, that's not going to work. Like that's not going to work. Or, it used to be that I would get a text message of like, "Oh, this person wants to play." Well, if I get that notification, I can at least be like, this is what level we are, and you know, we're this far into the game. But when he just invites people to play, it gets, I don't know, it's frustrating. It's just frustrating on my end.
No, I get that. Yeah, but like it sounds like too, like you're also at a point where you can end the current campaign in a narratively satisfying manner.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing to aim for, right? Like because look, we've all had those games that just break up and dissolve.
Fizzle. Oh man, those just your cyberpunk game. We harp on it all the time. Your cyberpunk game that fizzled is such a shame because I wanted to know where the hell that story was going.
Yeah, so did I. But I mean, like I had some loose stuff, right? But like we had a lot of fun with it, but it was almost like pulling teeth to get some of the people to participate in the storyline.
I know. I understand. I get it. It's just one of those things that, but at the same time, that's a big environmental factor. I mean, you basically just had COVID drop on top of that entire
Well,
campaign,
yeah,
and
that
it
was a
happens.
major factor, you know, and so that, but like, I think, you know, in terms of when to, so let me put this out in a different way, right? We're talking about when to end it, but yet I've seen, you know, like, Deck, I don't know how I call him Deck just because it's the way I can shorten his Discord handle. But one of our people in our Discord was talking about a game that he started running that was supposed to run for a year, and he started it 3 years ago, and it's still going. And so, like, you know, the other side of the coin is when do you just extend it? Because, I mean, I'm assuming that that individual, as the GM and all the players, are really really enjoying the story and the, you know, interaction and everything else. And I think there, as long as you can keep an interesting narrative going, ride it if everyone's having a blast with it, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like the other side of the coin.
I think that's true. My general rule. Oh, sorry. We glitched and I cut you off there, but I was gonna
Now I was
pipe up
done.
and say my general rule on. Okay, good. my general thought on when to end a campaign like that is when you are no longer having fun. You being the GM, because you are to have fun as well, because the GM is
Very
a player
true.
as well. And so when you hit that point of, oh, this is no longer fun for me, that's when it's time to start. As a courtesy to your players, you don't just end it right there, but you go to your players and you go, hey, I'm no longer having fun. I want to wrap this campaign up and move on to something else. And 9 times out of 10 your players aren't going to have a problem with that. And if they don't care for it, well, then they can do something about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's that too, right? Then
my biggest thing is because as the GM, you need to have fun. You need to remember that when it becomes a job for you, it's no longer entertaining, and it's no longer doing the job that it was supposed to be, which is to be, whatever you want tabletop RPGs to be for you. But at the end of the day, they should be fun. You should feel satisfied walking away.
yeah. I mean, I think, like we've talked before, yeah, you want to get the important loose ends tied up. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you end it on a cliffhanger. And that's not necessarily bad. That can be kind of a satisfying thing. Like, what do you want to say? Like the way, and obviously, listeners haven't gotten to it yet, but the way that our Oblivion War game ended was kind of on a big cliffhanger, but it wrapped it up. If we ever, want to get that crew back together and go further with it, it's potentially there to do. But it created kind of a neat point of, oh, damn. And I like the idea of stories that let you kind of come up with your own ending.
Yeah. So I have 3 thoughts in mind. The first thought is a ineffective tool for an ending, like you said with Oblivion, where wrapping up on a question mark, but tying enough loose ends that you feel satisfied with the thing is a great ending. Another option that I really enjoy, and what we're leading towards in modern video games, there's this thing called New Game Plus, where once you've beaten a video game, you start a new run of it and you get bonuses for starting that new run, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a new game plus new content, new bonuses, whatever. That is how I'm treating the ending of this campaign. Not to give too much away, because I know one of my players used to listen to the podcast. This might come out by the time we're ready to wrap up, so it might be okay. But I'm planning on wrapping the game in a way that allows them, like I said at the top, to sort of either translate their characters over to the new system, or make new characters that are related, or understand that this is the same world,
Mm-hmm.
or a similar world. And like I said, I want to end it where it's open for a new game plus. It's open for, if you want to play the same character, if you want to play a new character, if you want to play somebody completely unrelated, you can. If you wanted to play the son or daughter of that previous character, that could be worked out. And then the third thought is to just end definitively. And for some campaigns, that works really well, of just, this is the end. This is what happens. I mean, if you look at like the Lord of the Rings, just here's what happens, here's the end, this is the end.
Right. Or even, the one that strikes me as a very definitive end too is was it called, I think it was a Liam Neeson movie called The Gray.
Mm-hmm.
Now you didn't actually see the end on screen, but everyone knew what happened.
Right. Yeah. And that's the end. I mean, it's final. It's finite.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And that's a good way to end things. I think if you're going to do that, you have to be comfortable with the idea of never returning to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or never returning to that thing in the shape that you left it.
Yeah.
And that's a hard concept. Some people can't get over that. And I get it. I understand. And in that case, then leave it open for yourself in the future. in any sort of way, whether it be like we talked about with the loose ends, or with a cliffhanger, or in any way, leave that open for yourself in the future.
Yeah, I think you, and the thing is, after a campaign has gone for a while, you should have a feel for what it is that your players like and enjoy, because, I mean, you're gonna have those just random conversations with them, and
I mean, you've sat at a table with these people for hours and hours on end. If you
right.
don't have a feel for what your players are interested in doing, that's a you problem.
Well, yeah, and the one thing I would say, and I something I remember from a Seth Skorkowski video I watched quite a while ago, and I know he was talking about, and this is particularly an issue that like I think you and I have to battle with at times, because we see all these games, and oh, this is neat and that's neat, and I want to do this and I want to do that. You also have to be careful, like you're changing systems, right?
Mhm.
Fine. Nothing wrong with that. But what Seth was talking about, and thinking, something that really do think you should avoid as, if nothing else, a courtesy to your players. Don't just, oh, I'm bored with this. Let's wrap it up and do something new too much.
Yeah,
Because now you're basically asking your players, hey, go buy these books, go buy those books. Well, look, if you and I want to spend ridiculous amounts of money on stacks of books, that's all well and good. It's worth remembering your players aren't necessarily like that.
my thing, and this is something that I've been a big proponent of. If you're going to change systems like that, you need to be prepared to lend out a copy of the system that you're changing to.
Fair.
Um, like I dug up all my old Pathfinder books. My buddy has them. It's fine. He can have them for right now. He needs the research more than I do. You know what I mean? Like he needs
Mhm.
the knowledge more than I do. I have most of it. I just need basically refreshers. So going through it on my phone and looking at PDFs of it is fine. But for him, I get it. He needs to look at the actual physical copies. And that's fine too. But I as the GM had to be prepared, especially when changing systems, to be like, here's the system, here's where you can find it, or I have a copy, you can borrow it, and we can all share it. We can all take turns with it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's beneficial to do that. And then it encourages your players. If they like it, they can go and invest in a copy. If they don't like it, they don't have to invest in a copy. Because it leaves it open at the table for you to be like, well, I have the book, we can share it, it's whatever.
Mhm.
So, I while I agree with you that yeah, it gets frustrating, if you're somebody like my D&D group who doesn't play anything other than Dungeons and Dragons really, it can be daunting and frustrating to play new systems. I would never go to them every, 3 months and be like, I want to play this, or I want to play this, and I want to play this. I wouldn't do that. That's not the group dynamic that we have. If that was the group dynamic that we had, there would be things in place to make it, you know, more hospitable for everyone.
Mhm.
And you can think about it with our online games. We do that, where we always point people in the direction of you can find the book here. You can buy
Yeah.
it at drive through. That's why we do what we do when we do game of the week is, we point them in the direction on where things can be found.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times too, like, okay, yeah, it would be nice to have, a full copy of the rule book, but a lot of times for players, even just like there's a lot of games that have really good, fairly inexpensive or even free quick start guides, which
Yeah.
will give you your as a player, a lot of times will give you enough of a handle on it to at least understand what you're dealing with.
Most player handbooks, 90% of that book is usually character creation.
Large part, yeah.
And then it's, well, okay, I'll lower that to, let's say, 70. Okay. 70% of the books are character creation. And then it's maybe 10% fluff, 10% combat, and 10% world building. Right. And
Mhm.
when I say fluff and world building, I mean there's a difference between fluff, which is like internal storytelling, and world building, which is like filling out character background and stuff like that.
Right.
And you could argue that that's in character creation. I don't. I think it's separate because you can make a character with no background, basically a blank slate, and play with them without, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm rambling on
we've
that.
all done it, but
Yeah.
at one point or other.
I do it more than I'd like to admit. Just make characters with no backstory and then build the backstory as I play. But yeah, it's, you know, most player handbooks, like I said, are like 70-30. And if your players don't need characters made, if you sat down and went through character creation with them, or they figured out character creation and we're just in combat and we just really need combat rules, well, then I don't need a 300-page book. I need the 5 pages that the combat rules are on.
Mm-hmm.
And in most cases, yeah, you're right. The quick start guides, that's exactly what those are. It's like a handful of pre-made characters, and then also here's how to play the game.
Right. Well, and two, right, it'll give a player, even if it doesn't give them all the information they want for character creation, it'll give them a base understanding of how the game works, and in a sense, enough of a taste to say, no, I'll just borrow the books, or yeah, this looks interesting. I'm going to go buy at least, like you said, like the player's guide or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I wanted to point something out because I was looking the other day because I was curious. Speaking of borrowing books, and I know you probably haven't been, like I haven't been in a long time. Did you know that a lot of libraries now are starting to carry tabletop RPGs? Like not just Dungeons and Dragons, but they're actually starting to fill out with some actual tabletop RPGs.
I have heard that. I haven't actually been in a physical library in a really long time.
So, with a Westmoreland County library card that gives you access to the network,
Mm-hmm.
which extends all the way out until like Pittsburgh. And
Mhm.
so you can order books from anywhere to your local library. And a lot of that stuff online, it's like, oh, well, by the way, you can get, like all the Pathfinder books. I found most of the Pathfinder books at the local library because
Mhm.
I did send one of my players. They was like, where can I get these books? I don't have any money to buy them. I'm like, well, if you want to get them legitimately, you can go to the library and borrow them. And that's a
Mhm.
legitimate way to get the books. If you want to get them illegitimately, there's ways. Don't
Well,
encourage that, but
not totally free, but lower. Pathfinder made a lot of those digest-sized, condensed versions, like they don't have any of the art or anything in them,
yeah,
and you can find those at, like, half-price books and stuff sometimes,
all the time.
relatively cheap.
All the time. Yeah. I miss when D&D used to do that stuff. They used to do that stuff all the time. Fourth edition had a whole bunch of rules compendiums and like just stuff that was just digest sized and didn't have much art and a lot of words. But yeah, I mean it's always an option to throw to your players.
Mhm.
But I think the big thing is to keep the 3 factors that come into play in mind. Are you having fun? Is it time for the natural conclusion of this? And what was the goal that you originally set for yourself when running this campaign? And
Right.
and if the goals change, then the goals changed, and that's fine. But I think those
Yeah.
3 things are the most important things to keep in mind when ending a campaign.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, is it at a good point to end just on its own? That doesn't mean it couldn't be taken farther, but like you said, you also have to take into account the fun factor, are you having fun, and is the whole table having fun?
Yeah, if the
You know?
table's bored with it, it's time to move on. I'm
Yep.
sorry, it's time to move on. Especially if the table's bored with it. If you're just the only one bored with it, you can like I said, set a timer and be like, "Look, we have this long to play of this campaign left because I can only take so many more sessions." You know what I mean?
Right. But I mean, okay, I'll point it. The Mandalorian, great series. I've enjoyed what did they do? 4 seasons now?
I think so.
I've enjoyed seasons 3 and 4. Not saying they're bad. I would have been very happy for that to just be done after season 2. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in
Oh
any
yeah, I
way dissing on
completely
it, but that to me was a very satisfying ending point that left a lot of again, in kind of a gaming context, left a lot of room if you want to explore that story further on your own. And I get that they're not making Star Wars media just for the gamer crowd, but
Yeah.
you know
Well,
what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of an example of, could you end it and everyone be happy? Yes. You could keep it going for a while too.
yeah, I completely agree. I think that's accurate and true. I think you can definitely do what you need to do. And I agree with you that I think 3 and 4 of The Mandalorian aren't terrible. I don't know about this Acolyte.
I haven't got a chance yet because I want to watch it on, like a full size TV screen. And most of my time currently I'm at work. So
Yeah. I haven't seen it firsthand yet. I've just been hearing various reports and I don't know. I don't know. They don't sound optimistic, but
I've heard a lot of people that are pretty hyped on it, but that with the caveat that those people are hardcore Star Wars people.
yeah, I heard some stuff. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I genuinely don't know the whole details, so I'm not even going to say anything.
Mhm.
I'm kind of man, 10-year-old me would be so mad to hear me say this sentence, but I'm kind of tired of Star Wars.
It happens.
10-year-old me, when like episode 3 came out, would be so mad to hear me say I'm tired of Star Wars, because I was like so excited that we were getting more Star Wars, and so excited that like the Clone Wars TV show was starting up, and like episode 3 was coming out, and I was excited for that stuff. And now I'm 30 and I'm not excited for it anymore because I've seen too much and I can't unsee what I've seen.
No, but that's the thing, right? That's why, to go back to what I said when we started this whole discussion, I don't think there is one answer, to the question of when you're done, but it's kind of one of those things that it's time when you know it's time.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel that. Well, with that, I think it's time we move into game of the week.
Woohoo! Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
So, my game of the week is a game called Craving. It's
Okay.
an OSR zombie game that uses the True D6 system.
I think I looked at this. Is it part of Pocket Quest?
I don't see that it's part of Pocket Quest.
Okay.
Uh,
Could be not. I saw something zombie part of Pocket Quest.
yeah, it's a 88-page manual with a simple and structured system to quickly create characters and dive into an adventure. It's very art style's very Walking Dead, the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
So original Walking Dead, and I don't know. I like a zombie story every once in a while. There was a point where I was zombied out, but
This is the one I was looking at. Definitely, I recognize the artwork. I must have been something else I was, you know, inserting the Pocket Quest thing into, because the other stuff I was
who
looking at.
knows?
Yeah, no, it does. It looks neat, like you said. It's got that, looks interesting enough, and I mean, it's under
Yeah.
$10.
If you've ever seen anything of the Walking Dead comic book, it's got this very unique style, and I think I think they're very much aping on that, and I it's not a problem. Not complaining. Big borrow and
Mm-hmm.
steal. I don't care. But yeah, very cool. I'm excited. Would like to get that on a table at some point.
All right. Well, give me just a second here, and I will send a link for mine. But let me write it down before I forget, because I've been doing that a lot lately. All right. So mine is well, it's actually kind of a GM-less, potentially solo game. It's a game called Skyjackers, unrelated as to the One Shot Network's Skyjackers campaign, but it is. So here's what it is. Calls itself a highly replayable 1 hour long semi-competitive role-playing game for 2 to 3 players. It's about high altitude heists and backstabbing. Now, this one is part of Pocket Quest 2024. Currently, I don't know if it's on sale or if it's just marked down. It's like $3. Normal price is like $7. Little 25-page thing. But basically, the pitch is humanity is spread across the solar system, powered by all sorts of new technology and corporate greed. So you're getting into like kind of the Expanse meets Slay Industries in a way, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but basically, you've been pushed out of a job by encroaching robot workforce. You're drowning in debt, and so basically, you become pirates, and you
Cool.
try and steal shit from container ships and cargo.
Space scavenging pirates. I dig it.
Yeah. And so here's what you need for the game. You need the rule book, a 54 card deck, including the jokers. So it'd be what, 56 cards? Or is that no 54? Right. Anyway.
No, it's 54 because standard playing card deck's 52.
Right. Okay. Yeah, my math brain isn't working at 2 o'clock and 2:30 in the morning. A few 6-sided dice and some markers. So, and by that they're like talking tokens. That's it. You basically you set up a target ship. It has like 3 kind of archetype characters for you to use, and away you go.
Very cool.
And so, like I said, it just sounds like a kind of a neat, fun, repeatable one-shot type thing.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. It's definitely something I would be on board to play. But yeah, that's Skyjackers. And how much does it cost again?
Yeah, Skyjackers. Currently it's priced at $2.95 for the PDF.
Gonna break the bank on that one.
Like I said, it is looking like it's on sale. It could be part of the Pocket Quest thing, but even the regular price is $7, $6.99. So
Yeah.
you're not talking big money.
Very cool. Well, with all that being said, I want to thank everyone for listening. As always, links to everything are in the show notes. We'll also be linking, if you can, the Kickstarter. Gav Kuroga has a Kickstarter for Warpland, and that's a good way to get that game if you don't have a physical copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, we want to remind everyone to be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at @andrpgs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.